Hi everyone, and welcome to Byte Marx, a podcast for gamers, by gamers, about politics. And this is our top games of the year of 2023. Technically we have 6 games going, but it's our top 3, each mine and Emilio's. And here are the rules, as always. These are games that we played in 2023, not necessarily games that were released in 2023, although some of them might be. The fact is, Emilio and I have both time and monetary constraints that mean we can't necessarily always play new releases, but we've played these games and we decided that we wanted to talk about them, or we think that you guys would enjoy them, so here they are. Emilio, do you want to start us off with your third best game of this year that you played?
Yeah, I'd love to, Callum. So, previously we had attempted, I think, maybe our first one. We tried to have like a theme, maybe, and then we realized very quickly that we don't play enough games to actually just be able to categorize them.
To conform to a theme.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that this time I actually have games that all conform to a theme, and that theme is first-person shooter.
It's also ridiculous because of all the genres in gaming, first-person shooter is maybe your least played.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I don't play a lot of racing games. I always like first-person shooters, but I think the problem with first-person shooters is I only
you wouldn't
play them
consider yourself a racist?
No. That's a good joke, Alan. Well done. When it comes to first-person
anyway,
shooters,
you were saying.
Yeah, when it comes to first-person shooters, I feel like I only play them if I get engaged in the story, and a lot of first-person shooters are really more multiplayer-focused kinds of games, especially nowadays, so I don't play them as much as I used to. But I really do like first-person shooters. Some of my favorite games are first-person shooters, like Halo. Unfortunately, it's not on this list. But
Halo is a... I have mixed opinions about Halo. Anyway.
Yeah. So, this game is one that I think would be very stereotypically me, and it's Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun. Yeah, I know.
I should have known.
Yeah.
I should have the very second you said shooting game, I should have been like, I clocked you.
Yeah, you did. This game is actually released in 2023, and I played it basically like the month after it came out. So, forgive me if I don't remember all of the details, but yeah, so this game is basically a boomer shooter. It's made in the style of 90s shooters, so it has like pixelated graphics, the very, not like the full-on 3D stuff. Actually, in some cases like pseudo 3D, because the character models are like sprites that are always rotated so that you face their front. They don't necessarily have like a 3D actual model. But this follows the exploits of Stern Guard veteran Malum Cato.
Okay, so full disclosure, this is the second time we've had to record this because South African internet is the worst. As soon as I heard that name the first time, instantly, it is just my name, with like an M instead of a C. We looked it up, the spelling is almost correct.
Yeah. So, Callum could be a Space Marine. That's Callum's 40k name is like, Malum.
This is Cal Kestis all over again. Like, sci-fi is co-opting me.
Well, see, this is why we say, Callum, you would be more of an ideal protagonist for a video game than I would be. So Malum Cato
because
actually...
I'm generic and white. 2 racism jokes in one video, aren't you lucky?
Yeah. This is the premium content that people subscribe to the Patreon for, or the YouTube member subscriptions. I don't differentiate, Yeah. So Malum Cato,
we are differentiated.
Malum Cato is sent back to the Forge world of Gaia, I think, which, if you remember, is the setting for the Space Marine game, and that game is getting a sequel. So it's all connected. We're building a Warhammer cinematic universe. It basically has to go do Inquisition stuff. He's got to fight some demons, chaos stuff, standard Space Marine things. Look, I'm going to be honest with you, Callum. The story of this game is not mostly the reason why I played it. It's just I really find the kind of boomer shooter kind of gameplay really compelling. The game is not too long.
Booter is a good like Booter is a good compromise word between those two.
It's it has a very simple gameplay loop. Just shoot guy, they explode. Shoot guy. There's no like item collecting. There's no RPG mechanic. Well, I mean, there are a little bit, but there's no like a heavy emphasis. And it really is just a classic shooter game with a lot of like modernizations. Like they've got these really brutal melee kills that you can do with a chainsword. Which is the typical weapon of Warhammer. Like if there was going to be a game, a boomer shooter from the 90s, it was really weird that there wasn't one, made with Warhammer. But now they've done it in 2023.
Well, I mean, like Vermintide and stuff like that, I feel fits the format. But let me ask you, Emilio, why is this your third favorite game and not your first or second?
Yeah, so I think despite the fact that I really like the setting, and I'm gonna maybe try and get like an actual painted Malum Cato, mini. By the way, fun fact, he's voiced by Rahul Kohli, who is one of my favorite actors, and it's the reason why when I found out that he was really into Warhammer, that made me like the character a little bit more. But why is this my third favorite? Well, I think it has an issue where parts of the gameplay can be kind of repetitive, and especially with some aspects of the level design are very much still sort of like 90s in fashion, where there were a couple of times where I actually got lost on the level, and that took me out of it a little bit. Where I'd be having a fun time, from combat arena to combat arena. And then I'd not have the item needed to progress the level. I'm like, oh, shoot. Did I forget it? Did I not see it? In the haze of gunfire and there's like a taunt button. In the haze of gunfire and taunts, did I miss the thing that I was supposed to look at? Or, did it blend into the background because everything is pixelated and, once the blood starts flying, So there are like some elements of the gameplay that I would say need to be improved. The other shooter games that are on this list did stuff much better, and so that's why I think it's third and not higher up. It's just that it's a really good game, but the other games that I played were much better in the elements that I think I look for in a shooter. So it just had to be third.
Okay, I see. Well, I mean, it's an interesting departure from your usual games that you talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a point-and-click adventure game. It's not like a point-and-click cyberpunk adventure game. It's not a point-and-click cyberpunk game about a police detective.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, I guess you could also say kind of like police is also maybe a theme of these games, because all of these shooter games are kind of... I mean, you could make an argument that like the Space Marines are like the cops of Warhammer 40k.
As if I needed another reason to not like Warhammer.
In the very early editions of Rogue Trader, like in the first edition of 40k, there's a very strong implication that the Space Marines are more like the space police than they are anything else. There's some there's a very iconic piece of artwork. If I remember to, I'll put it in the edit of the video, where there's like the Space Marines like stopping and frisking like a cyberpunk looking guy. And it's a very distinctive image, but it's kind of been lost to time in terms of like its relevance in 40k. But like, yeah, there was this idea that, the Space Marines are not biomechanical engineered horrors of like death and war, but, also just like a very strict, very like severe
They're
space
RoboCops.
police. Yeah, RoboCops. Or Judge. Actually, I think the better equivalent would be like Judge Dredd, right? Where at least the RoboCop had the pretense of having to follow the rule of law. Judge Dredd was the executioner as well,
Yeah. ASMAB, all space marines are bad.
Yeah. So yeah, Callum, tell me about your third game.
My third game is also weird. It's not something I usually play, and it's it's called Chants of Sanaa. I think you might have heard of it. It's a translation game. It is okay, Emilio. This game is beautiful. It's got great music. It's got great art. It's like in this weird cel-shaded kind of style.
So like
it's got a lot of like
cel-shaded or
it's more like a painting.
Oh, that's lovely.
Kind of, like or like everything sort of looks like it's made of clay.
Okay, that's cool. That's very distinctive.
Yeah, it's a real. It's tough to describe. It has such a unique look to it. The point of the game is that it's basically the Tower of Babel. You are in this tower. You're a random red-robed person who doesn't understand any of the languages that people are speaking. But as you go through the game, you start to realize, like, these people discovered God, and they are trying to reach God, who's at the top of the tower. But they all talk different languages, and they can't really communicate with each other. And like the first part is like the holy place where there are all these priests. They're trying to discover things, and you have to start translating what they say. So they will put you. Yeah.
Is this like a biblical game? Is there like
no, not really. It's all like alluded to. It's not biblical at all, really. But okay. You're basically just a translator. So people talk in symbols, and they will be in a situation, and they'll say a few things in symbols, and you'll have to sort of piece together from context clues what they're trying to say. Then in your journal, the symbols will appear, and you can type in what you think the phrase is, and it'll show up underneath that symbol for the rest of your playthrough, up until a point where you get given like an example, and you have to match the symbol to the example, and when you do, it's fully translated and you understand it now.
So I was wondering actually how the game would confirm, like, because this is a deduction game, right? Like, you have to like use the clues to figure out what things mean. I was wondering how the game would actually tell you when you actually got it right.
No, yeah, it eventually does translate for you once you sort of get it, but you have to jump through some hoops before then. Like, you have to solve puzzles. There's a part in the warrior level where you have to, like, follow warriors as they march and pick up boxes, and they will specifically say to you, like, leave your weapon behind, pick up the small box, stop. Move, stop, move, and you have to do that, otherwise they'll discover you and like kill you.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
It's really interesting. Yeah, it's kind of it's a game that I think really does feed that sort of that part of my brain where you're like outsmarting people. Mm-hmm. Like it gives you the joy of solving a puzzle, but also like I don't have to fight anyone to get through this.
Yeah, okay. And story-wise, do you feel like there's because it is actually also a mystery, you know, trying to figure out like the language. Like, does the game actually evolve story-wise? Or do you end up basically just sort of translating everything, and then the game goes, yay, you did it, you translated everything?
Okay, so I haven't finished this game. And that leads into the reason why it's in the third spot and instead of all the other ones. But story-wise, I was enjoying it. It felt like the world slowly started getting bigger because every level of this tower belongs to a different culture.
Oh. Okay.
So you complete the language of one level, and then you move on to the next one. Well, you don't even have to complete the language. You can just sort of move on once you've done all the relevant puzzles. But completing the language apparently gets you like the best ending or whatever. And then you move on to the next level, and you like can cross-translate, like there are some words that are borrowed from one language to another.
Oh, like loan words.
Yeah, exactly. And you see like some words have been translated by other people, and you can see the translations and associate the words with that. And that's interesting. It's tough to connect to some of these characters. There's no like actual character going on here. There are just sort of like general people, yeah.
It is a compelling premise, but I also think that you do maybe need a little bit more to hook you in.
But again, I haven't finished it. Maybe 3 levels above where I am, suddenly you meet Don Quixote, and you fall in love with him. I don't know. But the problem I found with this game, and the reason why it's in my third slot, is that it's tough to go back to. And I think it's because there's no compelling characters. A good story is about characters. And I wasn't as compelled to return to this game as I was when I was playing it. It's a very engaging experience, and it's really interesting while you're playing it. It's so calm and yet weirdly tense sometimes, and interesting. But as soon as you leave it, I wasn't jazzed to return.
I see what you mean. I also wonder if maybe, like, with a game like this, there's all kinds of information that you're keeping in your head that you're not necessarily saying out loud or, like, writing down or whatever. And I find that with a game like this, if I'm playing the game, I've got all that information, I'm picking up all these clues, I'm thinking about them, I'm solving the puzzle in real time. But if I put the game down and, like, don't think about it for a day or so, when I come back, I've forgotten all of that stuff.
Oh, no, don't worry. That stuff all gets that stuff all gets recorded.
Okay, cool. That could have been... That's usually a stumbling block with these kinds of games.
I could go back now and continue right where I left off. The main problem is I'm not very compelled to.
So you have story fatigue.
Yeah.
Or is it progression
We
fatigue?
just did an episode on fatigue.
We're not tired.
All right.
No, sorry.
No. Speaking of not tired, I'm not tired of hearing about your games. So why don't you tell me about your second one?
So my next shooter actually is a throwback to basically one of my favorite shooters of all time, which is Half-Life. And I have played... this is actually a fan project, which also makes it kind of unusual, because as everybody knows, Half-Life has never gotten Episode 3. We've never gotten Half-Life 3. We kind of got something different with Half-Life Alyx, but that was a VR game, and I didn't play it because I get sick in VR, and, the future's gonna come and I'm gonna get left behind. I'm gonna be the old guy in the
Also,
VR
VR is
story.
expensive.
Yeah, that's also true, but I'm gonna be the old guy in the cyberpunk story that the protagonist will go to because he has, like, a VCR.
Imagine if they invented a type of CD that could only be played in Bugattis.
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
That's
what?
kind of
I feel
where
like
VR is right now.
Yeah. Actually, I feel like Elon Musk would do that. He would be like, he play Stardew Valley, but only on the Tesla, hardware or whatever. He would do something like that. I feel. Maybe not Stardew Valley.
Yeah, if you.
Oh my God, Fortnite.
Stardew Valley.
The Tesla edition.
No, Minecraft.
Oh yeah, Minecraft.
Minecraft, obviously. And then if you complete your life-size statue of him, you get Twitter Premium for a month.
For a day. You get it for a day. So this game is called Entropy Zero, and it's 2 games. But the first game is much rougher. You can tell that it was the creator's first experience. Basically, the plot of Entropy Zero is: what if you were the bad guy? So, in this game, you play as a Metro cop. The guys who are your antagonists.
So you are the bad guy immediately.
Yeah, the antagonist of Half-Life 2, basically. You play as a Metro cop, and you are a guy. You get to... Yes?
The antagonists of Half-Life 2 were the Combine.
Well, yeah, the Metro
Which
cops
were
are the
aliens.
humans... the Combine are aliens, but they have human collaborators. Most of the guys that you shoot in that game are human soldiers and human collaborators. Like, for example, the police force in Half-Life is the Metro force. The Metro PD.
Oh, okay.
Basically.
So you're like one of those.
Yeah. So the way that it works is that when you join up, you can join the Metro cops, and you're a baseline human. They give you rewards, additional food, certain types of things. If you really sign in, you really buy in, you can sign on to the actual Combine military, and then they start augmenting your body with additional cybernetics and stuff like that. And it's kind of body horror in a way, but there are additional rewards. The basic idea of the game is that you are a Metro cop, and you get to see the other side of the perspective, right? You don't play as Gordon Freeman. You're actually, for the first level, you're actually busting into a rebel stronghold, doing a bust and all of that stuff. And you get to experience, life from the other side. How do the Combine operate? You get a behind the scenes. That's what I find so compelling about it, right? Because you get to talk to you're in the Combine superstructure. You get to see how do they operate, what kinds of problems they have to deal with, how do they work, how to be, working, for the other side, the bad guys.
Emilio,
and obviously,
there's a website that I think you're gonna love, and it's called AO3. Because this is the premise of like every fan fiction ever.
Well, I guess you could call this a fan fiction. The game that's specifically in my number 2 spot is Entropy Zero 2, which in my opinion is really, really high quality, right? Like, this is a game where the developer, the creator, really took the time. Like, it's fully voiced. There are lots of like interesting level design decisions that make use of Half-Life 2's physics engine and level mechanics. There's even like Portal. Portal integration here, where you actually, because you're like experiencing the background side of Half-Life, you get to see parts of the world that were never explored in the other games. Like, you get to go into an Aperture Science facility and deal with like Portal shenanigans and stuff like that. And you get an AI robot companion, called Wilson, who is a turret, and you could have him with you throughout the game. And the game really does actually make you feel bad for the character, and it sort of explores the psychology of why somebody might want to join the Metro PD. Like, what are the conditions and the incentives that drive someone to join up, with a Combine, to basically sell out the human race? And it doesn't specifically, fully transition you to being a bad guy. You do have choices that you can make. It does actually push back on, like, hey, are the Combine actually good? Did you make the right decision, joining up with them? Like, what have you sacrificed to do that? And I really like the game. I find that the protagonist is, like, very, very much vocal. He has a very harsh personality. He swears a lot. He's very crude in some cases. But he's also has like a very working man kind of vibe to him. And I really enjoyed it. I felt at the end of Entropy Zero 2, I just like felt so satisfied. I felt like I had eaten a good meal, I had experienced a good story whose conclusion was satisfying to me with a difficult fight. And I found the gameplay, the gunplay, and all of that stuff to be very good. A lot of the levels were well designed. There were only a few times where I felt like, this was like rubbish. There's a particular encounter in the game, which was so stress-inducing but so much fun, and I think it was very heavily inspired by Half-Life Alyx, but I don't want to spoil it.
So I think it's a product of being like in gaming we're not in gaming anyway. It's a product of having played games for so long that everything you said to me brings back memories of like mid 2000s, early 2010s shooters where you have a companion character who's like the joke guy, and you go into science facilities and you have to question whether you're good or bad. It's like, it's so familiar a concept to me, but I think that's obviously that's not like the game's fault. It's just sort of something. It's like a mental block that you have to get past if you want to enjoy this game, because it does sound compelling. But why is it in your second slot?
Okay, so like I said, I had some issues with Bolt Gun, but overall I found it to be a very compelling experience. I really liked the setting, so on and so forth. However, that being said, I found that Entropy Zero had much better characterization. I found the story, like, there were some genuine twists in the story, genuine mysteries, like, what is going on here? Why are these things the way they are? And again, this is like some real deep Half-Life lore, right? That the game is actually exploring, and it's trying to give answers to questions that the fans have always been asking about, but we've never actually, like, seen them, because this technically takes place after Half-Life 2, but before Episode 3. So in a way, it kind of like progresses the story, and I thought that was really good. However, it is, as you said, it is very much still, in the mold of shooter games from, the, like, let's say the early 2000s to like the mid 2010s, right? While there were lots of interesting puzzles and, there are some like genuine gameplay sequences that I thought were really interesting, I didn't necessarily feel like it innovated on like the FPS experience itself, right? The number one game on my list, in my opinion, is really trying to push the envelope of like FPS combat experiences and all of that stuff. that, for me, like, again, for me, the theme is that the games that are on my list are just better than the games that are down. There's not one particular reason. It's just that each game that is higher up in the list is just better than the game before it in terms of like all the things that I'm looking for. It's not like I felt like I played this game like this needs to be there too, because what happened is, actually, it's really funny. I played these games in sequence. So I played Bolt Gun first, then I played Entropy Zero, and then the last game that I played, the top game on my list was the last game that I played. So each one, I'm like, wow, this is the best game, this is going to be number one. And then I played something else that knocked it down. So that's sort of how I ended up in that position.
Well, speaking of positions and positioning,
we're at number footwork.
2. Yeah, we're going to talk about my second game of the year. I makes it sound like I made it. My second favorite game of the year, which is Dodgeball Academia. Now, Emilio, you don't watch anime, do you?
No, I don't. I'm notorious for actually not knowing anything about anime. So this is anime game.
Do watch. Well, no, but yes, but also no. I do watch anime. I don't watch some kinds of anime. I've never been super into like sport anime. I'll enjoy it from time to time, but it's never been a genre I rarely got into in a big way.
Yeah.
This might get me into it, because there's this wonderful thing about like some sport anime and some anime in general, like stuff like Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff, where there's one thing in this world that everyone cares about.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter who you are, you care about this thing. And it's kind of hilarious and wonderful, and Dodgeball Academia is that, but with dodgeball.
Because everyone's into dodgeball.
Yep,
Okay.
The main character runs away from home. The opening cinematic kind of implies that there was something going on. They disagreed with their parents or whatever, and they ran away from home and joined the Dodgeball Academia, the premier school for teaching youngsters how to be dodgeball players.
Yeah.
And
this is like a super
no,
anime
wait, hang
trope.
on. No, you haven't heard nothing yet.
Oh, okay.
In the opening ceremony, they go and get a speech from the principal, and this game is wonderfully drawn and animated. It's like, it's 2D style it's sort of 2.5D, but it's like it's almost drawn like a cartoon. It's beautiful to look at. You go and receive power from the hero's dodgeball, which is a golden dodgeball that is perpetually spinning in a rock after the hero threw it so hard it wouldn't come out.
Oh my goodness. That's cool. So
that is the explanation as to why everyone has superpowers.
Okay, so that's the setup, but what actual kind of game is it? Is it like an actual dodgeball simulation?
Yeah. You get into teams of 3. And you have to play dodgeball against each other. 3 balls appear in the middle of the court. You go and grab them. You throw them at each other. You try and hit your enemies enough that their health goes down and they get knocked out.
Is this a first person or like a third person kind of game?
No, it's almost. It's at a weird. I don't know how to describe the camera angle, but it's definitely third person, and it's almost like the camera's at a slight slope. So you're looking at it sort of at an angle, you know. But yeah, you can always see everyone on screen. You run around the court and everything, and outside of that you run around the overworld. You get into fights or open containers or whatever, and you basically just play dodgeball. It's kind of hard to describe. I haven't played many games like it recently.
Yeah, no, I'm picking up what you're putting down. When you first started describing the game, I thought it would be like a turn-based game, you know, where you have to like use your moves or whatever to actually.
There is one section where you play a turn-based dodgeball game.
Oh my goodness, how does that work?
You go into the bathroom, and there's a guy in there, and he's like, I don't want to go to class. Do you want to play my turn-based dodgeball game? And you just select options in a drop-down menu.
Is that like that's like a satire of like JRPGs, isn't it? Right? Like,
yeah, it's the game is very comedic, and
okay, so
it
the tone
is
very
funny.
light.
Yeah,
That's
the game is funny, is the other thing.
Yeah, that's the
Not
cardinal
always.
sin. That's like the cardinal sin of trying to make a lighthearted game, where your game isn't actually funny when it needs to be.
Yeah, a lot of the jokes do kind of fall flat. Well, they don't fall flat, they're just sort of like mild at best. I did laugh a few times, which is more than a lot of comedy games can say. But even without the comedy and stuff, it's weirdly compelling. I did enjoy the characters, and I wanted to see what happened next.
So are there?
Because it kind of runs like a...
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry?
No, I was just gonna say
kinda-
like. Yeah, no, go ahead, please.
It kind of runs in like a show format, where
Okay.
the different chapters are split into episodes.
Your arcs.
And it would be like if it was a TV anime. It's set up
Yeah.
like an anime, where it's like, oh, in this episode they learn about this character.
Okay. And are all the do all the teachers have like special dodgeball powers? You have to do boss fights.
Yeah. You get to do challenges for their classes, and
that's
if
cool.
you beat their challenges, you get equipment. The two main like ways you upgrade your character is you can equip 2 different kinds of equipment slots.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I that all came out of my mouth at once. There's 2 equipment slots per character, and you can equip things to them. All
what
of
do
your
they
characters have stats. Well, they increase your stats, or they give you an ability. Like one of them was if you catch a ball at the center of the court, you get health back.
Oh, okay. So it's not like
Other ones
you
are
have
just
the-
like give you more strength or
you
whatever.
have like an attack percentage, you know.
No, you get strength, agility, and technique, which is what all the teachers teach you. Strength determines your damage, agility determines your dodging and catching ability, as well as how fast... No, technique determines how fast your like super move charges and
I
how
see.
powerful it is.
And what is the super move exactly?
Each character gets a unique super move, and each character gets a unique way of like charge throwing a ball. So the main character gets like if he does it, the ball gets a fire element. If another character does it, the ball gets like a lightning element, and they each have a super move that you have to charge up and then get a bunch of balls, and then you can do it. And they all have different effects. One of them like heals you. The other one like creates a tornado that sucks all of the balls into it, so that it brings it back onto your side. Another one just like does random shit.
So
It's interesting.
no, go ahead.
We keep interrupting each other.
We're having our own version of turn-based combat over here.
Yeah. Amelia used interrupt. It's very effective. One thing I love about it is that it's very simple, but it gets complexity. Not in terms of like, now you have to learn a whole new move set for a character. Every character's basic moves are the same in that you press square to throw, circle to dodge. Like some characters dodge, some characters catch the ball. It's very little changes from character to character besides their like super moves and their charge throws. Where the complexity comes in is enemy types, which get changed as the game goes on, and dodgeball types. So later on, they introduce the concept of like elemental dodgeballs, where some do electric damage and some glue you to the ground, and some do a thing where you can't heal anymore during the match.
I see. So why is this game as your second and not first?
Honestly, it's fun.
But
It was a fun experience.
but
Well, it's not. The reason it's on my first is because there's a game that deserves to be first more, but also it's not. It's compelling, but it's not very like. Dramatic isn't the right word. It's just. It doesn't have a lot of weight to it. There aren't a lot of moments where you're like gonna really feel the story has delivered a moment that's emotionally significant. It's
so
always telling jokes.
So it's too, basically this is a tonal problem, right? Well, it's not really a problem, right? The game has decided it wants to be lighthearted, but because it's lighthearted, like, when I think of movies that really
it's a limitation of the it's
Yeah.
a limitation of that choice.
Yeah, I hear you. Like, when I think of movies that really stick with me, I don't really tend to think of comedies. Because even in the moment, they're good movies, they're funny, etc. The movies that stick with me are like, the ones with more drama, more like a more serious tone in a way. So I hear you. Like, they chose to make a fun game, and they made a fun game, and there's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, a game that's going to keep you up at night is also not going to be a game that's wisecracking, like every...
Yeah, I mean, while I was playing it, I wanted to see what happened next, and then eventually I ran out of nexts, and I was just done. But I did platinum it.
Oh, wow, okay. So this is...
Yeah,
really played it. And
Yeah,
wait, did you
I
play
got
this
all
on
the
PlayStation?
achievements. I played it on Steam.
Oh, okay. So when you platinum it, you mean you got all the achievements?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Got all, like, 37 or whatever.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I didn't get all the achievements on any of these games.
But yeah, it's a fun game. It's an experience that you will be glad that you had. It's just not like... It's not gonna make it to anyone's top 10 list, and that's fine. Sometimes games can just be fun. And this one is. To the team that made Dodgeball Academia, you guys worked hard, the music sounds great, the art is amazing, the gameplay is fun, I enjoyed the characters, and occasionally it was funny. But yeah, it's as creative and wonderful and interesting as it is, it just doesn't deliver a lot of moments with weight that stuck with me later on.
Yeah, I see. Okay, so before I get into my best game of 2023, I think it's worth it to talk about some honorable mentions. So these are games that,
They didn't quite make the list.
Yeah, they
but
didn't quite
they
make
aren't
the list.
like. If this was a Broadway show, these games would be the understudies.
Yeah, they're good, but there are very reasons. But there's some reasons why they're not headlining. For me, I'm breaking the pattern here. My honorable mention is actually a mod for a strategy game.
Emilio, before we filmed this, was like, "Hey, can I make my top games mods?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" And this is the first one. Is this the only mod game?
Yeah.
All right, what was the mod?
Right, so this is the Fourth Age Total War for Rome Total War by Creative Assembly. So Rome Total War is one of the seminal strategy games in the historical strategy game franchise that is the Total War series. Really, a lot of stuff that we understand nowadays for historical strategy games goes back to Rome Total War. It's an old game. In fact, this is one of the reasons why it's an honorable mention and actually not on the list. But the real heart and soul here is the Fourth Age Total War. As everybody knows, I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings. And the Fourth Age Total War is something that it's just so rare in the Lord of the Rings fandom. And that is completely new IP. By that I mean...
Is the Fourth Age like after the Lord of the Rings movies?
Yes, the Fourth Age is actually after the story of the Lord of the Rings. It's something that Tolkien never really talked about all that much. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there are 7 ages in Lord of the Rings, and he only wrote very briefly about the Fourth Age. He had the story called The Coming Shadow, or The New Shadow, or something like that. And it was about the Fourth Age, but he gave it up because he thought it wasn't a story that he wanted to write. Those guys who made the mod basically took what information was there and expanded it out into a completely reimagined Middle-earth. Where it's kind of actually much closer to like Game of Thrones, where now the magic has faded from the world. Now, for the most part, it's just the kingdoms of men who are left and squabbling with each other because, just because they beat Sauron doesn't mean they actually have peace. It's like it's actually really compelling, because we'd never ever see a vision of Middle-earth like this. And we have all of these issues. There's a religion that's coming up, like the worship of shadow magic. Sauron is like this religious figure. There are cultists trying to spread, this dark stuff in secret. The other thing that I like about it is that the other people of Middle-earth really get expanded upon. So all the people that are traditionally lumped in as the bad guys now are just other people, struggling in the world. Like, the people in the Haradrim or the Easterlings, they are given much more of a voice, and they're given much more of a stake, because now they're not just working for Sauron. Now they're just rival kingdoms who are trying to expand and do everything that the other kingdoms are doing. It is a really lovely game.
Is the point of this game to conquer, or is it to build an empire?
Yeah. So it follows the basic Rome structure, where you have to conquer territories. Each faction usually has specific territories that are important for them to conquer. But you just try and fight against AI faction opponents with real-time battles and turn-based sort of management.
Who's been your favorite faction so far?
Oh, yeah. I think my favorite faction right now is probably the Kingdom of Dale. Because they are really, really
the Kingdom
different.
of who?
The Kingdom of Dale. So if you remember in The Hobbit, Dale is that place that gets burnt by Smaug. And, by the time of the Fourth Age, they're actually the most powerful kingdom in the north. Dale is actually a really powerful kingdom because the dwarves have reinvigorated their entire society.
The first place that gets burned. Because I was like, no, that's Rivertown. You're thinking of Rivertown.
Yeah, that's Dale.
Silly.
That's
no,
Dale.
That's not Dale. Dale's the place outside of the Lonely Mountain.
Yeah, well, that's Rivertown is the settlement that they built after Dale, but the people of Rivertown are basically Dalian. They have Dalian heritage. And the kings of Dale are descended from Bard. So there's a whole thing. But yeah, it's just one of my favorite factions. The reason why this game is not actually on the list is because it's in Rome Total War, and Rome Total War is a really old game. It doesn't have 62-bit support. It's only a 32-bit game. It doesn't really work very well on modern systems, and there hasn't been a remaster or a port for modern systems. So it's incredibly unstable. I've had lots of crashes that basically just kill all my progress. Even though I am more than capable of running the game, it's just an old game that needs updating for new systems. So yeah, I highly recommend if you're
that's always the worst
to check it out. It's I say this with no irony or anything like that. It captured my imagination in a way that very few games ever have. Just because it was so interesting to see new. It's like imagining new Star Wars, right? Something that's not connected to anything in the rest of the series. And somebody comes out with that, and it's just really well made. It's a gorgeous mod. The models are amazing. You have so much little detail. You can find out so much lore that the guys had to create, and it's book accurate, right? Another thing that I like about it is that it looks book accurate. They have designs and stuff like that are from the books, not from the movies. So that's another.
That's always cool.
It is very cool. And you, Callum? What about your honorable mention?
Well, okay, so I had several games that I wanted to do for my honorable mention, Elden Ring, which I finally beat this year.
Hey, congratulations!
The new Game of Thrones, or a Game of Thrones mod for CK3.
Yeah.
Which is also, it falls into a lot of the same categories where they have book accurate models for all the castles and things. But I think something that really weirdly captured my attention, because it finally went on sale and I could finally pick it up, was Link's Awakening, the remake for the Switch.
Nice. It's finally available on Switch. That's cool. So
it's been available on Switch for a few years now. It's just always been at full price.
Okay.
It finally went on sale, and I don't know, dude. It's Tears of the Kingdom was also on my list to be an honorable mention because I haven't finished it. I don't know, it hasn't clicked for me yet. But the thing I always loved about Breath of the Wild, and to an extent Tears of the Kingdom, was the vibes. I really like the almost calm and yet also adventurous vibe where you can sort of just go into the world and find people who are happy to be here and you want to help them, and so you go on adventures and stuff to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking about that, Link's Awakening does that so well. All of the characters are adorable, and I like them. I want to help them. The clay-like models that they've gone with are so visually pleasing. I've really genuinely worked to do some of the puzzles because I just want to experience more of this game. It's fun. It kind of borrows the same map from Link to the Past and stuff like that. It's one of those games where it's like, this is basically a Link to the Past and a Link Between Worlds and all of that stuff, but it's a new kind of one. And it's interesting to see how it's different and how it's the same. And it's one of the only Zelda games that Zelda's not in, which is wild.
True,
yeah. The castle in the middle isn't Hyrule Castle. It belongs to some weirdo who literally got thrown out because of a peasant revolt.
Yeah,
and it's just fun.
Every so often, a lot of the Zelda games, they do have kind of a formula, but every so often, they'll just be like, hey, make a game that completely breaks. Well, Nintendo like to make, they stick to the things that they like, but every so often they'll do like a Paper Mario or something. And I feel like Link's Awakening was a little bit like that for the wider context of the Zelda games.
I don't know
it doesn't
about
have
that.
Zelda in it,
That's kind of why. Well, but that's like one thing. The reason it's an honorable mention is it does kind of conform to the Zelda things, and it's not very difficult. Yeah, you go into dungeons, you collect an item. That's how you beat the dungeon. It's fun. It's very fun. It's a good format, but like if you're tired of that, I totally understand. It's also not very difficult, which is a thing. It's not very long. I'm pretty close to beating it, I think, and I've only rarely played it for a few days.
I kind of like that.
You can go on heroic mode. There is apparently you get the true ending if you beat the game without dying once, and I might go through that, through it again to try and get that once I beat it.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it's fun. It's I don't need especially long games anymore. I've gotten very tired of very long games, and it is fun to play something that I can just sort of sit there and have fun with and be charmed by. But it didn't make it onto the list because I also don't think it innovates very much. It's delightful, but it wouldn't be everyone's bag. It's not crazy challenging, and I know a lot of Zelda fans want that. It's not... The story is good. Well, I enjoy it, but it's also not, like, incredible. It does explain... It holds your hand a lot, which is annoying. It explains things to you a bit too much, but Zelda's always done that. It's great. If you can pick it up, pick it up. Another reason it's on the honorable mentions is because, unfortunately, it's a Nintendo game. It's a Switch game, so... Yep. It's really expensive.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so I guess we should talk about my final game of the year. My best game.
Yes.
And I am actually a little bit unsure about if I'm going to pronounce this properly.
Do your best, sweetie.
So, this game is called Trepang 2, or Trepang Squared, I think. Sometimes it might be referred to as Trepang Squared.
What?
And, so this is a first-person shooter, which in some ways, like, when I played it, I was absolutely captivated by it. I had dreams about this game. I was thinking about this game. I just wanted to know more about it. I was, like, reading the wiki. So, to go back a little bit, I really liked the Fear games when they came out. They were actually some of my favorite games. Fear 1, I think, is like one of the best first-person shooter games ever made. Trepang is basically what if SCP was also a shooter game.
What is SCP?
The way that they... the SCP wiki, like, where all those weird, anomalous, like, items and objects and phenomena, it's like an internet scary wiki, basically.
Oh. Why? Why would people do that?
Okay, it's a creative writing project, basically. Like, people can submit articles about this stuff, and they contribute to a shared canon.
Is that where, like, creepypastas come from?
Well, no, it doesn't. This is not necessarily... Like, the creepypastas predate SCP, I think. SCP specifically is about a shared fictional universe called the SCP universe, where there's a foundation called the Foundation that protects the world from anomalous creatures, phenomena, entities, etc.
Oh, like cryptids and stuff like that.
Kind of, yeah. But it could be like, everything from a statue that snaps your neck if you're not watching it, to a giant
mean
fish.
You mean Weeping Angels
Weeping
from
Angel?
Doctor Who?
Yeah, except this one is a statue that kind of looks like a peanut. It's a
I would love it so much if there was an episode of Doctor Who where all of the Weeping Angels were peanuts.
Yeah, there's an SCP that is a guy who is unkillable, and he will, if you see his face, he will have a freak out and like murder you. There are some SCPs which are like infinite libraries. There's a weird SCP that's like a random spot on the ground, and if you walk into it, it will give you a random piece of knowledge. The SCP wiki, it's a very weird kind of place, but the basic sort of gist of it is that there's this foundation. They try to do their best to deal with the anomalous, but invariably it means like lots of people just end up dead. Sometimes the world ends. The canon is not very strict. There are multiple like timelines and perspectives and things like that.
And if there's one thing I know about canons, you have to be strict with them.
Yeah.
But you
the
were
SCP
saying
franchise got really popular. So Trepang Squared is basically the game starts with you in a prison, and you're having really weird like visions about stuff, right?
Did
and you're
Bethesda
going to
make
potentially
this?
be executed. No. It's made by an indie studio, I think from Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken.
then it's
the
really
basic idea-
indie.
Yeah, like a guy comes up to you, frees you, and tells you that you need to escape the prison. And then a SWAT team bursts in, and there's like really high octane shooting action, right? Like the ending of the first level is a shootout against waves of enemies, from basically the prison. And it's like, it incorporates so many of the things that Fear did well. So you have a pretty, sophisticated movement system with sprinting, camo, that can make you invisible to enemies. Bullet time, right? You have like a bullet time.
So
resource
it's
that
sort
you
of
can
like
use.
it's like Crisis.
Kind of, but the enemies can kill you easily, and you can get killed easily. So it's a very sort of like you have to like shoot the enemies. You can't like tank damage really.
I don't want to keep interrupting you. I'm sorry, but what you just said was the equivalent of like heads I win, tails you lose.
Sorry. Yeah, no, but you are a glass cannon, and the enemies, generally speaking, are glass cannons. There are a couple of enemies that are very hard to kill. You can only kill them with like specific kinds of shots or very powerful weapons. But generally speaking, they die quickly. You die quickly. It makes the gunplay very high stakes because you really have to be constantly moving around, constantly using your abilities, juggling multiple types of attacks and multiple different types of weapons. You can upgrade your weapons by finding parts. The enemy AI is really, really good. One of the things that was often talked about in the development of Fear was just how good the enemy AI was. This game expands on that. So, they can do much more complicated, sophisticated maneuvers. There were many times in the game where I felt like, oh, damn, I'm actually outflanked. They outflanked me. Like I was fighting an enemy squad and they figured out where I was going, sent one guy to stop me, and then went around and tried to hit me from behind. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna die now because
what the hell?
But luckily the game gives you tools to manage this increased awareness because the enemy AIs are the soldiers are much better able at communicating. Some of them will still do some dumb things. Like on one level, it's very easy to spawn camp them based on where they spawn. But other times, there's like really, really good design here to make the encounters interesting. But this is not just a standard shooting game, right? I mentioned Fear because this is about a foundation of people, basically a task force. I think it's called like the Raven Task Force or something. And when you escape the prison, you join them, and you're fighting against a company that is using paranormal and supernatural entities to make all the money in the world. And basically you have to spend the game going to solving their messes. So on one level, there's a hospital that had a quarantine breach because a bioorganic virus that the company was developing basically got loose.
I love Resident
One
Evil.
place, you find a sentient fungus that downloaded the Bible and started becoming like a world-ending threat. And you have to go stop it. Wait. There's one level that is just permanently wired into my brain, where you have to deal with a facility that went dark, and like there's this strange paranormal entity that never really gets fully explained that's haunting the whole facility, and like causing you hallucinations, trapping you in multiple dimensions, playing with your perspective. You go into the back rooms at one point of this game. Like, legitimately, there's a section of the game where you go into the back rooms and you're exploring this like liminal space. Yeah, I could gush about it, forever. Yeah, Callum?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I was just gushing about the game. Talking about.
No, sorry. I was trying to say something while you were talking.
Okay.
And I don't think you could hear me. And I was just okay, I'm gonna have to delete the time I said wait like 5 times.
I'll lead you in. 3, 2.
Oh, we'll edit this stuff out.
Yeah. So
you
had a question.
So, okay, one, the virus thing. So I love Resident Evil, and the Bible mushroom. I love The Last of Us too. It doesn't really work outside of the moment.
Yeah. So the way that this game works really is that there's a wider narrative here that the company that you're fighting. They're doing all this unethical stuff, and you have to clean up all their messes, right? Because you're opposing them. You're like another company, doing like research into this stuff. But every level is self-contained. So you go there, you do your objectives, and then you extract when the level ends, basically. And it is like self-contained. No level feels like it's too long. In fact, I kind of wish that the levels were longer, right? Because they keep inventing new kinds of combat encounters, right? New kinds of enemies, new abilities, right? You get to there's a type of enemy that you can only really beat by like dash shooting him, where you have to slide on the ground but change your orientation so that you hit the character just as they charge you. They keep introducing new kinds of enemies, new kinds of experiences. There are segments of this game that are legitimately terrifying, but I find they find a good balance between like the more hardcore military side and the more paranormal, like ghosty goo kind of side. And it is a hard game, right? It's a hard game for sure. I played this on hard, and there were many times where I'm like, I liked it so much, but I like my level of skill was not where it needed to be, so I dropped it down to normal. But then, I find it would be a little bit too easy, then I'd send it back. Because like playing it on hard, I feel like was the perfect level of difficulty for most of the game.
So I was gonna say, if you had to describe this game or like pitch this game to someone, so get them to buy this game, recommend it with one sentence, what would it be?
An amazing blend of horror and action, right? That's really the way that I can describe it. Like, there are segments that are legitimately terrifying. The action is top notch. Like, the soundtrack for this game is really good. Like, it's a mix of synth and metal soundtracks that really just like get your adrenaline pumping. They're like at the end of the episode, I'm like at the end of each level, I'm like legitimately like coming down from the adrenaline of just trying to survive this crazy combat experience. Doing all of this stuff, and I really like hardcore military stuff, and I feel like they get the lingo just right. The voice actors know what to say. They know how to like communicate about like different things. They use the right terminology. It's also one of those games that actually has an FPS boss fight that feels like a boss fight. There are actually lots of boss fights.
It's not just like emptying a clip into something.
No. When this game actually has bosses that legitimately feel like boss fights, where it's either some puzzle that you have to solve while dealing with a situation, or it's like a special enemy that has special moves that you can deal with in a particular kind of way. I don't really want to spoil the story because I feel like the story could be better. I feel like there are elements that could be improved, but for what it is, and I know there's I think there's a DLC campaign coming that will add some more additional stuff to it. So I don't necessarily want to criticize the story too much, because I feel like when the DLC drops, they might actually just be fixing the things that I'm talking about. But if you were only to get one game on my list, this is the game that I would most recommend. I had the most fun playing it. I was thinking about it for days afterwards. So that Trepang Squared is my top game. What's your top game?
Go and buy it.
Go. Yeah.
Okay. I'm a hack.
You're a hack.
I'm an artistic equivalent of a Big Mac. It's Baldur's Gate 3.
God damn it.
All of you know why. All of you understand. It's good.
We can just end the episode.
It really is. It's yeah. I mean, we've gone for an hour. But it really is good. It's well written. It's compelling. It's got good gameplay. It's complicated enough to be interesting, and yet it doesn't ever feel so complicated that I couldn't like figure out anything to do. There are some games that like I can't do anything because it's too complicated. Baldur's Gate, I could at least figure out that the sword means attack. You know, it like that. Yeah. And there's stuff to learn about it. The characters are interesting. The stories are good. Every single character is voice acted. It doesn't matter how insignificant they are. They could be a random goblin in the middle of the camp. They have voice acting, which is wild. It has some problems though. I don't want to rag on it too much because it genuinely is one of the few games that gets like nominated as Game of the Year and deserves it. It's brilliant in every possible way, but it does have problems. The AI pathing is kind of wild sometimes, where I carefully make my character walk along a place, and the companions I have with me decide like, I'm gonna jump across this pit that's about 30 feet lower and take 14 damage. It's like, cool. No, I have to deal with that, huh? There are some like other things. It's so big. We just did I talked about it earlier. We just did an episode on fatigue, and Baldur's Gate I got a lot of fatigue with because it was everywhere for a while. It's still being talked about.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's like social media is just always just blowing up. You know, I haven't played it really. I think I played the tutorial, on someone else's computer, and now my social media feed is just full of Baldur's Gate stuff, TikToks and. No, I don't have TikTok, but like YouTube Shorts, I think, which are just basically TikToks that are uploaded onto YouTube. Lots of videos, people making impressions, people talking about the game. There's like video essays. There's so much
doing cosplay. Well, it's everywhere, and like it's not a bad thing. I'm glad people are talking about it. This game does genuinely deserve to be talked about, but it does mean that like I have seen every aspect of this game at this point. I kind of don't have the energy to keep going with it. I haven't finished Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know if I'll finish Baldur's Gate 3 because I just like it takes so much energy to open it now. It's a huge game, and that also kind of sucks because I hate this might just be a me thing, or like people like me kind of thing, but I hate the idea that I'm missing something. That I've missed content. So I hate games like this where it's like you failed a roll, and so you don't get to see that this swamp is actually a swamp. It's not a beautiful forest or whatever. I kind of hate it when there's an underground puzzle and you if you don't get it right immediately, you don't get like this really cool thing, or you get the option of choosing several pieces of armor or whatever. And I don't know, there's a lot to praise about this game. It's really cool that I can change my class whenever. I think that that's a wonderful feature that they did in Divinity, and they brought it over here. It's great. It means I don't have to restart if I don't want to like try something else. I love all of the characters. I was really invested in the story. It's just, I don't know, man. It's so much energy to play this that I end up kind of regretting it afterwards. There is something to be said about a game where you can spend 3 hours talking to someone. But also, I did just spend 3 hours playing this game, and all I did was talk to someone.
Yeah, I know. I hear what you're saying. Like, you can eat. It's possible to have too much of a good thing.
Yeah. I personally can't talk about the price because I got this game free from one of our lovely, wonderful, amazing viewers who won it in a Twitch raffle. So yeah, You just be lucky and you get cool games. But if you have the opportunity, if you have the kind of hardware necessary and you have the opportunity to get Baldur's Gate 3, it'll be worth it. I do think, however, if you're gonna do that, pace yourself. Play it for a while and try and get into it, and then once you get to the end, no matter what ending you get, just get through it once, and then once you're a bit more familiar with the game, go through it again. Try weird stuff. The first time around, I think, should be dipping your toe in the water, and then you play it again. Maybe that's the way to do it. Personally, I don't think if I beat this game that I would ever touch it again. It's too big, it feels like too much of a commitment.
Yeah, like this is I totally get you, right? Like Trepang Squared, I finished it in 2 days. It's a comparatively much shorter game, and if it was a longer game, maybe I would feel a lot less disposed about it, right? Some of the issues would stand out more. I think one of the problems with Baldur's Gate is there's so much of it that if you just one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of young people are actually playing Baldur's Gate, and that kind of makes sense, right? If you're in high school or whatever, you have more time to just play 300 hours on a video game. I feel like 300 hours is more than I've played the whole year.
Yeah, I see people going like, oh, if you talk to this rat, you can get a quest that leads you to the sword of the kings, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Not only are there 1,500 characters I can talk to every animal as well.
Oh,
and it's just like, I hear that and it stops being exciting and starts being like, are you kidding? Because my brain is going like, if you want to experience everything, you have to talk to everyone.
Yeah.
The universe will reward you if you talk to everyone. And it becomes too much work. Ultimately, though, I would have put Dodgeball Academia as my first slot this year because it's tight, it's fun, it's interesting. It's a lot shorter than Baldur's Gate, so its mistakes didn't stand out as much, but it also doesn't get like there's kind of you get what you pay for and that's it. But Baldur's Gate 3 deserves to be at the top spot. It is massive, incredible work of art.
It's an achievement of note, right? Like Baldur's Gate 3 puts so many other AAA game studios to shame with the amount of attention to detail. Like, everybody is voiced, right? And that's an actual person that they had to do to coordinate and all of that stuff. So they do deserve their accolades, but, it might not necessarily be for everybody.
Yeah, there was a video by James Stephanie Sterling who said that they've been seeing a lot of people saying like Baldur's Gate 3 should be the new standard for the industry, like when it was coming out. And they responded that no, Baldur's Gate 3 should be the new height of the industry.
I agree with that, 100%.
So much work went into Baldur's Gate 3. The team behind it was enormous, and they had years of preparation and funding that they could go into it. So, yes, Baldur's Gate 3 deserves all the praise it's getting. It's an incredible game. Please don't mistakenly believe that this is what all games should be like. The level of dedication, maybe, but like the resources to go into this, crazy.
Yeah, if all games were like Baldur's Gate 3, I wouldn't be playing games.
No, I would exclusively be watching cutscenes on YouTube.
Yeah, I hear you. So I think that brings us to the end of the year and the end of this video.
2023 stretches out behind us, and 2024 stretches out in front of us, and I'm stuck here in the middle with you.
There's no place I'd rather be, Callum. So, thank you everybody for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. You can check out our Patreon, our YouTube memberships, etc. All the good stuff. All the plugs and things are in the description.
Do the various YouTube things. Just
like
real
the video.
quick. For potentially the last time this year, maybe, depending on how we order these videos, thank you very much to Liam Anderson, Dorian, and Discordance. There are $5 a month patrons. They support the channel greatly. Thank you so much for watching.
Oh yes, yeah. Thanks to those guys. Also, before I forget, our channel has been growing. Thanks everybody for that. We're making strides, we're making progress. You could look out for more stuff that's coming in the future.
Happy holidays, whichever holidays you celebrate, and enjoy the new year. So long.
Bye, everyone.